to Dead Man Talking. Tonight's story is part 3 in a series entitled The LBL Type 3. Thank you so much for all your feedback and support, guys. Without further ado, let's get straight into that. The sun rose with a warm and foggy morning blanketing the land around the farm. The farmer was up first and woke my grandfather first, then Dee and Riz. The men all grouped together in the kitchen, sipping steaming hot cups of coffee. "So, boys, what do you plan to do from here?" asked the old farmer. Dee straightened up in his chair, his brother following suit. "Well, sir, we don't really know," said Dee. "I guess we could hit the road. I hear there's always work in New Mexico," said Riz. Grumbled the farmer, wiping coffee from his tired-looking beard. My grandfather spoke up, suggesting maybe they could help in fixing the place up and help keeping both their asses alive for a bed and food. Ultimately, making sure that dogman was on limited time. Scores needed to be settled. A debt was due. The farmer frowned as he thought of the idea. Did he have a choice? It was coming for them. He knew the stories were true. He had seen it up close already as a child. "Well, boys, I sure could use your help. And you can have free run of the entire property for hunting or whatever you need," said the old boy. Dee and Riz, looking at each other, nodded and then said, "You've got yourself a deal, sir. We're scared as you are, but I'll be damned if this son of a bitch runs us off of our land." And with that, the men felt for the first time in a long while they had a genuine chance at surviving this creature's wrath. Hell, they might even kill it. "Then it's decided then, boys. Welcome to the goddamn family. Keep your hands off my whiskey now." The men finished their breakfast, got washed up and met out on the deck out front. It was still deathly quiet and serene as the breeze flowed through the cornfield like invisible waves. Grandfather, knowing the layout of the property, gave the brothers a tour of the land and explained what had taken place on the week before and the months before that, with the farm hands that searched for the hunter and, of course, never returned. As he explained what had gone on since he had arrived on the property and how the old farmer had found him and the others covered in blood, how each man that went in search for the hunter, only one had returned, telling of monsters, dogmen, cold and calculated killers, shaking as he had when he was laying inside that hollow oak, hearing cries and screams for help and pain. Dee and Riz sat, mouths open in shock of what had happened and what had been going on around the property. It turned out they worked on a farm about 12 to 15 miles away. It also had the same strange occurrences that never really seemed to make sense, but nothing on the level that grandfather had told them. More livestock slaughtered in dreadful ways never seen before, throats ripped out, internal organs eaten, some placed neatly to one side. They had suspected coyotes, although the injuries sustained were enormous, that of a lion or something otherworldly. Grandfather scratched his head at the news, clearly shocked to hear that the trouble was as far away as that. Then again, wolves have a huge territory, he thought. "Well, now you know what has been happening around here, and it seems like you already have your own debt to settle. Are you going to stick around? Nobody will blame you otherwise." Dee and Riz, both taking in the vast land of the property and depth of risk they was now taking on, looked deeper into the horizon, unsure if they would live to see many more sunsets at all. The rest of the day was spent securing the farmhouse and rebuilding the wall to the bunk's cabin. As sundown approached, the men felt confident and headed in for supper and a beer or 6. That night, around 11:45 p.m, Grandfather was washing up the last of the dishes and cups. The splashing of the water was the only sound in the quiet cabin, as each man deep in his own mind trying to understand what the hell was going on and how to kill that son of a bitch. Just then there was a loud bang and a downright ungodly roar from deep in the forest. The men all stopped instantly what they was doing. The water from the kitchen tap, the only noise left as the terrifying roar slowly died off into the crisp forest night. Silence as Grandfather shut the tap off. Drip, 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 drip. Riz shuddered as the noise finally faded. Dee, eyes wide, already loading and checking the chamber of his 357 Desert Eagle. The old farmer walked into the room and broke the silence with the cock of his spaz shotgun. I always wanted to use these slugs. On the now dusty shell box said the words, Dragon's Breath. Seems only right to light his arse up one more time. Ha ha, said the old boy. The men smiling and getting themselves ready. Just then, loud, heavy footfall could be heard straight past the kitchen window. Then, across the back decking and an almighty crashing from the chicken coop. Then, finally, the pig pen. As the pig screamed and squealed in terror, the men raced out the back door of the kitchen, round and down to the pig house, crashing and snarling, accompanied by sickening, wet, swiping sounds, as we can only guess was the dogman cutting his way through the defenceless and plump pigs. The men arrived moments later, guns drawn. The pigs squealed, and the chorus of bloodlust and pure animalistic destruction drastically stopped. All that could be heard now was the rapid breathing each man was taking as they came upon the pig house. Then,
thump, 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 thump.
They could hear it walking the long centre corridor of the pig house, growling and snapping as it did so. Grandfather said he could feel his hands and legs tremble as he heard the hard, heavy footsteps the dogman made. Each of the men looking at each other nodded and moved forward, each one pacing out 10 steps from the other. With a huge crash and roar, the enormous dogman smashed through the south end of the pig house, sending wood and long splinters flying through the air. Grandfather was the closest to it, and didn't hesitate in unloading his .357 into the dogman's left side and upper left shoulder. It let out a scream of agony, but moved without trouble, like nothing had happened at all. The old farmer and the brothers followed suit and unloaded their weapons. Dee with his 357 Desert Eagle, Riz with his M4 carbine, each man emptying a full clip, then reloading again and burning that clip as well. Silence fell as the roars and screams stopped and their rib rattling ceased to vibrate from the cores of their bodies. Smoke plumed and danced slowly up from the red-hot barrels of their weapons. "Did you see where it went?" shouted Grandfather. "I think it jumped back round the other side," said Riz. "Okay," said Grandfather. "Let's split up and meet round back." "Agreed," said the brothers. "Keep an eye on those treetops, boys. We've already seen how easily he moved through them," said Dee. The farmer simply nodded in agreement. The men slowly split into pairs and made their way round to the pig house, taking note of every piece of their surroundings, from the ground up into the trees. They paced the outside of the now very quiet large building, listening for any noise or sign. Again, the forest was completely and utterly mute. Not an owl or cricket joined in the moonlight hunt. Hearts pounding in their ears, mouths dry with fear and adrenaline, They paced the outside of the building until they reached the corner wall. Bro, Riz whispered. For fuck's sake, what? Remarked Dee. This is crazy, brother. What are we doing? Said Riz in a visible, shaken state. I don't know, bro, but these people need our help. And to be honest, I ain't happy with it killing Brett like it did. It needs to be stopped. If not us, then who? Fuck knows, brother, but the police won't do shit. Now let's light his ass up. Just then, a snap. It grabbed both their attention as they looked down the tree line at the back of the pig house. At first, they wasn't sure what the hell was going on. Where is it? Said Dee. I don't know. I think it's in the trees again, said Riz. There! Shouts Dee as he points about 35 metres down the tree line. Sure as hell, one tree is leaning under the huge weight and hardly moves in the fairly strong breeze of the night, whilst the rest are swaying from side to side, but remaining vertical. Just then the two brothers see the old farmer and my grandfather rounding the corner at the other end, obviously completely unaware of the dogman lurking just 10 metres away up the cypress tree. They are too far away to shout, and too far to get a solid shot. They must press closer, and fast. Let's move, says Dee, and the brothers press forward silently, keeping an eye trained on the dogman high in the tree, who now seems to be outwardly trying to get a vantage point on the other men. The brothers quicken their pace, all the while grandfather and the old farmer still are clueless to the apex predator that is drooling some feet away. As Dee and Riz finally get closer and my grandfather and the farmer see them ahead, something truly chilling happened. As the brothers started to get within a good range, there was a massive and dense
thump, 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 thump
from the other side, which shook the building, followed by the all too familiar thump of heavy bipedal footfall. But now it was on the roof. There were two dogman creatures. Dee and Riz had no choice but to shout and alert the farmer and grandfather to the dogman's presence in front of them. But grandfather and the farmer were already shouting at them like crazy. It turns out the second dogman was coming up behind Dee and Riz on the roof of the pig house. Finally, Dee and his brother realised what was happening as the farmer and grandfather started shooting above the brothers' heads. Dee, pushing his younger brother to the ground, dived and rolled back away from the building, quickly aiming and firing upon the dogman, still in the tree, but now only a couple of metres away from grandfather and the old boy, who now realised what was happening. With this, each man fired opposite ways, hoping to group up, challenge the two dogmen as one group again. The dogman must have seen it coming, as without further warning, the dogman in the tree leapt out from the burdened trunk, wood chips splintering as its long, sharp claws left the soft bark. With a tremendous launch at such a speed, nobody could have evaded its attack, even if they tried. Grandfather says he knew it before he even looked, heard the agonising yelp and air being knocked out of the old farmer. As he turned his head for a second, still firing at the other dogman on the roof, now joined by Dee and Riz, he saw the farmer being thrown around like a damn ragdoll, and then slashed and clawed, strips of skin and flesh like ribbons. Grandfather then found himself running straight for them as they rolled around on the dirt, which, by now, was being painted with dark red pools of blood. He ran up on the farmer's gun, which was packing those badass dragon's breath shells. He picked it up and shouted, "Hey!" Then unloaded 4 times just as it turned to look at him. The incendiary shells ignited on impact, sending flames and peppering its face and upper torso with red-hot shot. It let out an ear-splitting screaming noise and let go of the farmer, who by now had either passed out or was dead. It leapt off him and straight for grandfather as he unloaded 2 more shots into its hind quarter, it collapsing mid-stride. Again, it cried out as grandfather reloaded, and it crawled madly at the ground trying to get back up. but he says he thinks he broke both of its lower legs. Again, he fired, this time unloading fully and then beating its head to a messy pulp. The dogman on the roof still occupied by Dee and Riz, taking no notice of the demise of its partner. By now, Riz and Dee both screaming at grandfather to get his ass over. He snapped back to the situation still unfolding, looked at the farmer, then the brothers. Who do I go to? He thought. Damn it, man, get your ass over here. We can help him in a minute or we can all die, said Dee. Without further thought, he ran towards the brothers, who by now were pacing back slowly to his direction. The other dogman, now on the ground level and heading towards them with an evil, tooth-bearing grin along its jagged snout. Riz was down to his sidearm Glock 45. Dee reloading and screaming for grandfather. Just then, grandfather takes aim with the spaz shotgun and dumps 2 shells at the creature as it appears to try and leap at the brothers. He hits it straight in the upper side, sending it crashing back in pain, and with an enormous thud, Dee continues his attack as it clambers to its feet, and for a moment they all stop and look in shock as it stands bipedally at almost 8 feet tall. Apparently, it also appeared to be female. Just then, a huge, deep and long howl or roar ascends through the dark forest, causing all of the men to cover their ears. Grandfather says again he felt his chest rattle. In seconds, the dogman launched itself easily 30 feet into the tree line and through the brush where they lose sight of it. Turning to each other, then back over to the old farmer who lays not moving but rapid breathing motions, clearly clinging to his dear life. They run over with grandfather grabbing him and lifting him up off the floor, which is now a crimson coloured dirt. We need to get him inside now, he screamed. Dee and Riz both agreeing and helping move him back to the farmhouse. We can come back for that in the morning, said Dee. And the 3 men stumbled and rushed back to the house, completely exhausted and shaken from the madness that they had just seen, up close and personal. Laying the old boy on the long oak kitchen table, the men gathered towels and fixed a tourniquet to the farmer's right leg where he had a 9-inch gash in his thigh. It severed his femoral artery. He was in and out of consciousness for many hours, but eventually he stabilised. Well, for the time being anyway. During the early hours of the next morning, grandfather by his side, Riz and Dee watching opposite windows for anything unusual, the farmer came round and opened his old, tired eyes. He looked at grandfather and started to chuckle. Grandfather couldn't help but laugh back with him, although concerned he did even make it to see sunup at all. The old man spoke but coughed and choked on his own blood, so he pointed to the old book on the kitchen side. Grandfather picked it up. This? You want the book? He asked. The old boy nodded with a struggled smile across his wrinkled and time-worn face. He turned it open with a thud on the table. What is it? Asked grandfather. The old man began to scribble down words to the page. Thank you for all you have done in this last year, boy. You have grown to be the son that I never had. The old man coughed, again searching for air between his choking. This here has everything you will need to know. And for starters, get some more of those shells. Grandfather looked at the farmer, puzzled for a moment. The old man continued. Read it, learn it, live by it. I never settled and had a family of my own. You boys on this farm was as close as I got. I want you to have the farm and land, all of it. But you have to promise me you will stay and see this out to the end, like me. Grandfather looked at the men and then at the farmer again. I'm shocked, sir. I don't know what to say. Thank you, I guess. But listen, old man, you're not dead yet. The old man, with tears rolling down his cheeks, laughing once more and then wincing in pain and coughing again, pushed the strange, heavy old book towards my grandfather, looking him in the eyes and nodding. Dee and Riz made their way over and sat nearby. Grandfather explained what had happened and asked the men if they would too continue to stay, continue to fight. Riz, looking at his older brother, almost thought approval of the idea, then, nodding his head and remarked, "Yes, sir." Dee, also doing the same, but said, "On one condition, old man." Grandfather nodding in apprehension of what he might say. "You let us get at that old stash of fine-ass bourbon you keep hiding with him." Ha 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 ha! And they all laughed. With a couple of shots laid out, they drank a toast with the old farmer. To the farm and kicking some ass. Keeping watch over him until the next morning, whilst the brothers rotated watch at the windows through the night. Again, the early hours were far too quiet, and a thick fog had rolled in. All they could do was watch and wait. Wow, hope you guys enjoyed that. I'm absolutely really enjoying writing this story and hearing what you all think. It's been amazing, and I do plan on making some more different types of cryptid stories. Again, please do let me know down below in the comments, guys, some feedback, and of course please do like and share. Your support is amazing as ever. We're almost at 2,800 subscribers, very near. Stay tuned for the next part. I'll be uploading that in a few hours. And remember, guys, above all, be safe, not sorry.